The night my husband vanished, he did not leave a note, he did not take his clothes, and he did not say goodbye. He erased himself like I was a mistake he wanted to forget. For years, I lived with questions that burned my chest and answers that never came. Then, one afternoon, a luxury car rolled up beside me, quiet and polished like a predator. The window slid down, and his sister looked at me with a smile that was too calm. She said only 2 words, "Get in." In that moment, I knew the truth was finally here. And I also knew someone was about to regret everything they had done to me. My name is Ava Reynolds, and I was 34 years old when my life split into 2 versions of itself. The woman I was before my husband disappeared, and the woman I became after he decided I was no longer worth explaining anything to. I lived in a small, quiet town, where everyone recognized each other at the grocery store and waved from their front porches in the evening. It was the kind of place where secrets were rare and loyalty was expected. That made what happened feel even more violent, even more humiliating. Because when betrayal comes in a town like this, it echoes. I had been married to Daniel Reynolds for 7 years. 7 years of shared routines, shared dreams, shared struggles. He was charming in a gentle way, smiled with his eyes and spoke softly, like he never wanted to startle anyone. People trusted him instantly. I trusted him completely. That trust would become the sharpest weapon he ever used against me. The night he disappeared started like any other. The house smelled faintly of garlic and rosemary from the dinner I had cooked. The television murmured quietly in the living room, forgotten background noise. I remember standing at the sink, watching water swirl around a plate, when I noticed how silent everything felt. Not peaceful, empty. Daniel was supposed to be home by 6. It was already past 9. His phone went straight to voicemail. I told myself he was stuck at work, that his battery had died, that something ordinary had delayed him. But the air in the room felt tight, like it was holding its breath. I walked through the house calling his name. My voice sounded too loud, too alone. The bedroom was untouched. His clothes were still hanging in the closet, pressed and orderly. His shoes sat in their usual place by the door. His toothbrush was still damp from the morning. It was like he had stepped out for a minute and forgotten to come back. That was when fear stopped feeling like a possibility and started feeling like a truth. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers gripping the comforter, staring at the doorway. Something had been decided without me. I did not know it yet, but my life had just been rewritten by someone who believed I did not deserve a voice in the story. The police were polite, careful, detached. They asked their questions and wrote their notes, but I could see it in their eyes. Adults do not vanish without choosing to. There were no signs of a struggle, no missing money, no packed bags. It was a disappearance that looked intentional. That realization hurt more than any accusation could have. His family reacted in a way that confused me even more. His sister, Lila, cried loudly at first, too loudly. Her tears came quickly and stopped just as fast. She avoided my eyes when she hugged me. Her arms were stiff, her touch distant. She promised we would find him, promised she would help, promised we were in this together. But her voice lacked urgency. It lacked desperation. It lacked truth. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. People stopped asking how I was. They started watching me instead. I became the woman with the missing husband, the one whispered about in grocery aisles, the one people pitied without understanding. I still slept on my side of the bed. I still set 2 plates at dinner sometimes, then stared at the empty one until my appetite vanished. Hope can be a form of self-torture. Every ring of the phone made my heart jump. Every knock on the door made my stomach twist. And every time it was not him, something inside me tightened a little more. It felt like being abandoned over and over again. Money became a quiet threat. Daniel handled most of our finances. I discovered bills I had never seen, accounts I had never known about, payments that did not make sense. The deeper I looked, the more fragile my security became. It was like uncovering cracks in a foundation I had trusted to hold me up. Someone had been building lies under my feet. Lila checked in occasionally, but her visits felt forced. She would stand in my kitchen with her arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like she was measuring something. Not concern, not sympathy. Calculation. She asked questions that felt strange about my savings, about my job, about how I was managing. This time I felt smaller, like she was taking inventory of what was left of me. I started noticing things I had ignored before. How Daniel avoided talking about his family finances. How Lila always seemed to know more than she should. How they shared looks during gatherings, brief and loaded. It was as if a conversation had always existed between them that I was never invited into. One evening, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. My eyes were tired. My shoulders were tense. My smile had vanished. I whispered, "What did you do to me?" But the question was not for Daniel alone. It was for everyone who had watched me unravel without offering honesty. Years passed, the world moved forward without my permission. I rebuilt what I could. I worked harder. I learned how to survive on my own. But survival is not the same as healing. Somewhere inside me, the story was unfinished. And unfinished stories demand endings. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. I was leaving a small cafe near my apartment, balancing a paper cup of coffee and my thoughts, when a sleek black luxury car rolled silently to the curb beside me. It did not belong in my neighborhood. It looked expensive, controlled, dangerous in its calm. The window lowered slowly, deliberately. Lila sat inside, dressed in designer sunglasses and a tailored coat. Her hair was flawless. Her expression was composed, almost triumphant. She did not ask how I was. She did not greet me. She simply looked at me like someone who finally held all the cards. "Get in," she said. 2 words. No explanation. No emotion. Just command. My heart pounded, but my face remained still. In that moment, I understood something deeply unsettling. Whatever had happened to Daniel had not been chaos, had been planned. And whatever Lila wanted now was not about closure, was about control. As I stood there staring at the woman who had pretended to share my grief, I felt the first spark of something powerful. Not fear, not sadness, awareness. The truth was close enough to touch. And I had the feeling it was going to be ugly. If you have ever been abandoned without answers, if you have ever been treated like your pain did not matter, then this story is for you. Hit the like button and subscribe, because what you are about to hear is not just about betrayal. It is about reclaiming power. It is about watching karma move slowly but strike with precision. Stay with me until the end, because the justice in this story is not gentle and it is not accidental. The moment Lila told me to get in, I should have refused. Every instinct in my body told me that whatever waited inside that car was not going to be kind, but something stronger than fear pushed me forward. Curiosity mixed with anger, a hunger for truth. I opened the door and slid into the leather seat. The smell of expensive perfume filled the air, sharp and artificial. The door closed with a solid thud that sounded final, like a decision being sealed. She did not look at me as she pulled away from the curb. Her hands rested calmly on the steering wheel, nails perfectly manicured, her posture relaxed. It was as if she was driving to a lunch meeting, not dragging a woman into the center of a mystery that had haunted her for years. "You look better than I expected," she said casually. That single sentence felt like a slap. Better than expected. Like she had assumed I would still be broken. Like she had hoped for it. "I did not know we were still pretending to care about each other," I replied. She smiled slightly, the corner of her mouth lifting with quiet amusement. "You always were sensitive, Ava." The road stretched ahead of us, long and unfamiliar. We were heading out of town. My pulse throbbed in my ears, but I forced myself to sit still, to observe. Lila was too comfortable, too in control. That meant she believed she had already won something. We stopped in front of a towering glass building on the edge of the city. It reflected the sky like a mirror, cold and unreachable. She parked and stepped out without waiting for me. I followed, my legs feeling heavier with every step. Inside, the lobby was silent and polished. Marble floors, soft lighting, security at the front desk. This was not a place for casual visitors. This was a place where power lived. Why are we here? I asked. She finally looked at me, her eyes sharp and calculating. Because you deserve to see how things turned out. That word, deserve, it twisted in my chest. She led me into a private office overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. The atmosphere was suffocating. She poured herself a glass of water, then sat in the chair behind the desk like she owned the building. Daniel always dreamed big, she said. You kept him small. My jaw tightened. I kept him honest. She laughed quietly. You kept him poor. That was the moment I realized her cruelty was not accidental. It was intentional. She wanted to hurt me. She wanted to rewrite the past in a way that made her brother the victim and me the obstacle. She explained pieces, never the full truth. How Daniel had walked away from his old life. How he had invested in new opportunities. How he had built something successful. She spoke of him like a rising star, like a genius who had been misunderstood. And me, I asked, what was I to him? She shrugged. Collateral. The word hit harder than any insult. It was cold, final, dehumanizing. I felt heat rise behind my eyes, but I refused to let her see it. Every tear I held back felt like a small act of rebellion. She wanted to watch me crumble. I would not give her that satisfaction. She leaned forward slightly. You've lived your little life while he created something extraordinary? That is just how some people are, Ava. They stay behind. I looked around the office, at the luxury, at the view, at the silence that only money could buy. So this is what you brought me here to see. A trophy room. Her smile sharpened. I brought you here to remind you who mattered. That sentence settled in my chest like a stone. She was not just cruel, she was proud of it. Over the next weeks, Lila made herself a presence in my life. She sent messages that pretended to be updates but were really taunts. Pictures of expensive dinners. Photos of properties. Vague references to Daniel thriving somewhere far away. She never said where, she never offered proof. Just enough to keep the wound open. Each message felt like a deliberate twist of the knife. She wanted me to doubt myself, to question my worth, to feel small next to their success. One evening, she called unexpectedly. Her voice was smooth, almost playful. I was thinking about you today. I said nothing. You were always so loyal, so patient. It is a shame those qualities never paid off. Her words were sugar-coated poison. She was feeding on my silence, on my restraint, on my refusal to explode. What do you want, Lila? I finally asked. She paused, just long enough to make me uneasy. I want you to understand your place. That was when the anger truly took shape. Not wild, not loud. Controlled, focused, dangerous. She started appearing where I least expected her. At restaurants, at public events, always dressed impeccably. Always looking at me like she had insider knowledge of my life. Like she was watching a show she already knew the ending to. Each encounter was a reminder that she felt untouchable. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how much I had learned during the years she thought I was weak. She underestimated what loneliness teaches. It teaches observation. It teaches patience. It teaches strategy. One afternoon, I overheard her speaking to someone on the phone. Her voice dropped into a tone that was sharp and urgent. No, she does not know yet. And she will not unless we make a mistake. My heart raced, but my face remained calm. That sentence confirmed everything. There was more, much more. And they were afraid of it coming out. The games continued. The arrogance grew. And with every move she made, she revealed another crack in her perfect mask. She believed power protected her. She believed control made her invincible. She did not realize she was teaching me exactly how to dismantle her. The breaking point did not come with shouting or tears. It came quietly, the way storms form when the air grows too still. It came on a Tuesday afternoon in a place that should have felt safe, my own apartment. I had just returned from work when I noticed the envelope on my kitchen counter. It was cream-colored, thick, expensive, not mailed, hand-delivered. My name was written in elegant handwriting I recognized instantly, Lila. My stomach tightened before I even touched it. She never sent anything without purpose. Okay? Every gesture from her was calculated. Every word was a move on a board I had not agreed to play on. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single document and a small photograph. The document was a legal notice, a claim. It stated that Daniel had transferred assets years ago and that I had no legal standing to question any of it. It was a warning disguised as information, a reminder that everything had already been arranged behind my back. The photograph was worse. It showed Daniel standing beside Lila in front of a beachside villa. He looked healthy, confident, alive in a way he had not been with me for years. His arm rested around her shoulder, not affectionately, but protectively, like partners, like accomplices. My hands began to shake, not from sadness, from realization. He had not vanished. He had escaped, and Lila had been the architect. The room felt smaller. The walls closed in like witnesses that had been silent too long. I pressed my palm against the counter, grounding myself, forcing air into my lungs. This was not abandonment. This was betrayal with structure, with planning, with paperwork. I replayed every moment with new clarity. The odd questions about finances, the controlled grief, the calm in her voice when she told me to get in that car. None of it was random. I had been standing in the middle of their victory lap, and I had allowed it. The shame tried to rise. It's the voice that said I should have known better. It crushed it immediately. That voice was not mine. It was the echo of years of manipulation. They succeeded because they were coordinated, not because I was weak, but something had changed. Before, I wanted answers. Now, I wanted balance. I sat at the table staring at the photograph until my heartbeat slowed. I studied every detail. The angle of the sun, the branding on the glass behind them. It's the kind of villa that only appeared in high-end real estate listings. This was not hiding. This was display. They wanted to be seen. Just not by me. That arrogance was their flaw. I began to understand something dangerous and empowering. People who believe they have one grow careless. They stop guarding their steps. They assume the past is buried. I folded the document and placed it carefully back into the envelope. Not in fear, in preparation. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in the dark with my laptop open, scrolling quietly. Searching, observing, tracking the digital fingerprints that success always leaves behind. Luxury requires visibility. Wealth requires proof. And proof leaves trails. I found Lila listed as a director in a small foreign investment company. The name meant nothing at first, then everything. It was registered under a jurisdiction known for hiding financial transfers. That told me they were not just running from marriage obligations. They were hiding something larger. My pulse quickened, not with panic, but with clarity. This was not just about Daniel leaving me. This was about them stealing my future to fund theirs. I opened my banking records, the old ones. It's the ones I had avoided because they felt like looking at scars. Transactions appeared that had never made sense. Small at first, then larger, then strategic. Money moving quietly while I trusted loudly. I whispered, "You've planned this for years." And suddenly I was no longer a victim of abandonment. I was a witness to a crime. The realization hit with a weight that made me stand. I paced the room slowly, every step grounding my resolve. They had not destroyed me. They had trained me. Years of survival had sharpened my instincts. Loneliness had made me observant. Betrayal had stripped me of Navit. I had been studying power without realizing it. And now I was ready to use that knowledge. The next morning, Lila sent a message. Did you receive my little reminder? I stared at the screen, my reflection faintly visible. The woman looking back was not broken. She was awake. Yes, I typed. It was very informative. Her response came quickly. Good. I would hate for you to misunderstand your position. I smiled, slow and controlled. She thought this was dominance. She thought I was cornered. She believed pressure would make me retreat. She had no idea it was doing the opposite. Because something fundamental had shifted inside me. I no longer wanted closure. I wanted exposure. I wanted truth where they had built illusion. Consequences where they had built comfort. I stopped responding to her messages after that. Silence unsettles people who depend on control. It forces them to reveal their next move. And she did. 2 days later, she appeared at my building again. This time without warning. Without the luxury car. She looked irritated, disrupted. You have been ignoring me, she said sharply. I met her gaze calmly. I have been busy. Her eyes narrowed. With what? Understanding, that word changed her expression. Just for a fraction of a second, fear flickered. Then arrogance reclaimed its place. You are not as important as you think, she said. I leaned slightly closer. Neither are you. That was the moment she realized I was no longer playing defense. And that was the moment my revenge stopped being an idea and became a plan. I started quietly. Silence was my shield. While Lila believed I was retreating, I was building. Every morning I woke with a calm that felt unfamiliar, focused, sharp. I moved through my day like nothing had changed. But inside, every detail had a purpose. First, I documented everything, every message, every call, every photo she sent. I saved timestamps, locations, metadata. I printed copies and stored them in separate folders, digital and physical. Redundancy meant safety. I contacted a private investigator using a neutral email address. No personal name, no emotional story. Just facts. Just suspicion. Just proof that something did not add up. When he replied, his tone was cautious but interested. That was enough. We met in a small cafe far from my neighborhood, the kind with cracked leather booths and low lighting. I slid a folder across the table. He opened it slowly. His eyebrows tightened with every page. This is not abandonment, he said quietly. This is financial disappearance. That sentence sent electricity through my spine. Validation, not emotional, legal. I gave him access to everything. Banking irregularities, Lila corporate registrations, Daniel business connections. He promised discretion and patience, to qualities I had learned to respect deeply. Then I waited. Waiting is not passive. 'Tis pressure applied in silence. Days passed, then weeks. And then the messages from Lila changed. She grew restless, shorter, sharper, less controlled. Why are you not responding? You are being rude. You are making a mistake. Each text felt like a pulse of panic disguised as authority. It told me I was getting close without even knowing how close. It is coordinated fraud. This was not personal betrayal alone. This was criminal arrogance. Now I had power. But power without timing is just noise. So I waited again. I allowed Lila to believe she was still in control. Do not take too long. There was fear beneath that demand. And I fed it. I contacted a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. One who specialized in financial crimes and marital asset recovery. I laid everything out. He did not interrupt. Third, public accountability. Each step had to land in sequence, like dominoes. The lawyer prepared the filings quietly, without alerting anyone. Then came the invitation. I messaged Lila myself. Finally, you look different, she said. Transaction trails, dates, proof? Her face changed color slowly, like paint fading, like control slipping. That is why it is powerful. Her hand trembled. She tried to regain composure. Already done. By the time you finish dinner, your accounts will be frozen. By morning, legal notices will be filed. By the end of the week, your luxury will be questioned. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. I walked away, but I was not finished. The next phase was exposure. Not emotional, not dramatic, strategic. My lawyer filed a civil suit. An investigator handed evidence to financial regulators. Quietly, officially, irrevocably. Then I waited again. The luxury car disappeared from my street. The messages stopped. The silence shifted from control to panic. One morning, I saw her name in a business news article. Local investment firm under investigation for financial misconduct. No photos, no glamour, just facts. That was the beginning of the end. Daniel surfaced through lawyers. Not apologies. Demands, threats, fear disguised as authority. I let my lawyer handle everything. My silence was louder than any argument. And for the first time since he vanished, he was forced to look at me. Not as something left behind, but as the force that dismantled everything he built. Revenge did not feel explosive. It felt precise. It felt clean. It felt earned. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere. It's the kind of cold that strips people of illusions. Marble floors, high ceilings, wooden benches polished by decades of fear and hope. I walked in slowly, my heels echoing with each step, and for the first time in years, I felt taller than the shadows that had followed me. Lila was already there. She did not look powerful. She did not look untouchable. Her posture was rigid, her shoulders tight, her hands clenched in her lap. The designer coat was gone, replaced by something simple, defensive. She avoided my eyes like a child. Who knows the truth but hopes it will stay hidden? Daniel sat beside her. Seeing him again was like looking at a stranger who wore the face of a memory. His hair was thinner. His jaw was tense. He did not look like a man who had one. He looked like a man waiting for impact. I took my seat across the aisle. I did not greet them. I did not acknowledge them. That silence was intentional. It told them everything. The judge entered. The room stood, the room settled, and the world shifted. The prosecutor began with calm efficiency. Numbers, dates, transfers, shell companies, false documentation. Each word landed like a quiet hammer. I watched Lila flinch at specific details, like her body recognized danger before her mind accepted it. Daniel stared at the table. He did not look at me once. Then came the evidence. Screens lit up. Bank statements appeared, transaction trails mapped like veins of corruption. The offshore accounts, the forged authorizations, the marital funds moved without consent. Every secret they believed was buried was now illuminated under institutional light. Lila whispered something to her lawyer. He leaned close. His jaw tightened. He nodded once. Slowly. That nod felt like a door closing. The prosecutor turned toward me. Mrs. Reynolds, can you confirm these signatures? I stood. My knees were steady. My voice was steady. Yes, I said. And I can confirm they were never authorized by me. Daniel finally looked up. Our eyes met. For a moment, the courtroom vanished. There was only us, the woman he erased, and the man who underestimated her. He did not look angry. He looked afraid. That was the first. Release. Quiet. Powerful. Final, the defense attempted to shift blame. Confusion. Misunderstanding. Clerical errors. But their arguments sounded small against documented intent. The structure of deception had become too clear to deny. When the judge spoke, the room held its breath. These actions represent coordinated financial misconduct, he said. The court finds sufficient cause to proceed with full charges and asset seizure. Lila inhaled sharply. Her fingers gripped her purse like it was the last piece of stability she had left. Asset seizure. That meant the luxury, the control. Image gone. The power she had used to humiliate me was now being stripped by law. The courtroom buzzed with quiet reaction. Journalists scribbled. Lawyers whispered. But I remained still. Because inside something had finally settled. Later, in the hallway, she broke. Lila rushed toward me, her composure cracking like glass under pressure. "You destroyed us," she hissed. I looked at her calmly. "No, you revealed yourselves." Her lips trembled. "You had no right." I leaned closer, my voice low but unwavering. "You took my life apart without asking." This is what accountability feels like. Daniel stood behind her, silent, smaller. No longer the architect, just another defendant. She opened her mouth again, but no words came. Only rage, only regret. Only the realization that the woman she dismissed had become the force that ended her illusion. I walked past them outside. The sunlight felt different, brighter, honest, like it had been waiting for this moment. Days later, the news broke. Headlines spoke of fraud, of asset freezing, of ongoing investigations. Lila's name appeared without titles, without luxury, just facts and consequences. Her empire collapsed in silence. Daniel tried to contact me, through lawyers, through intermediaries, through carefully worded messages that carried desperation behind formality. I did not respond. He had lost the right to my voice. One evening, I received a message from an unknown number. "You could have chosen mercy." I knew it was her. I typed one sentence. "You chose control." Then I blocked the number. The final hearing confirmed everything. Full financial penalties, legal restrictions, professional ruin. The court did not raise its voice. It did not dramatize. It simply concluded. And that conclusion was devastating. When the gavel struck, it was not loud. But it echoed through every year of silence I had survived. I closed my eyes. Relief washed through me slowly. Like warmth returning to a frozen body. Not explosive. Not wild. Just complete. Like the end of a long, unfair sentence. I was no longer the woman who was abandoned. I was the woman who exposed. I was no longer invisible. I was undeniable as I walked out of that building. People moved around me without knowing what had just happened inside my life, but I knew, and that was enough. Justice did not scream. It stood quietly and finally said, "This ends now." I used to believe karma was dramatic, loud, immediate. I thought it arrived like thunder, quick and unmistakable. But now I understand karma is patient. It waits until people are comfortable in their lies. It waits until they believe they are untouchable. Then it moves quietly, with precision, and takes everything they built on deception. What happened to Daniel and Lila was not cruelty. It was consequence. For a long time, I wondered if I would ever feel whole again. Not happy, not healed, just whole. Betrayal fractures your sense of reality, teaches you to doubt your memories, your instincts, even your worth. When someone disappears without explanation, they leave a question mark on your identity. You start wondering if you were invisible all along. I know now that I was never invisible. I was underestimated. That is a dangerous thing to do to a woman who has learned how to survive alone. I did not win because I was ruthless. I won because I was observant. I paid attention when they thought I was broken. I listened when they thought I was too hurt to think clearly. I watched when they believed I had accepted defeat. Revenge, when it is justified, is not about destruction. It is about balance. It is about restoring truth where lies were allowed to thrive. I did not ruin their lives. They constructed a life that could not survive honesty. I carry no guilt, and I owe no forgiveness. Forgiveness is often demanded from the wounded to make. The guilty feel lighter. It is another form of control. I refuse to participate in that. Some actions deserve distance, not absolution. Some betrayals deserve memory, not mercy. What I gained was not satisfaction alone. It was clarity. I learned that love without respect is a trap. Loyalty without transparency is manipulation. Silence without intention becomes submission. But silence with purpose becomes power. I learned that waiting is not weakness when it is strategic. That calm can be a weapon. That restraint can be more intimidating than rage. I learned that you do not need to scream to be heard. You need proof. And I learned that rebuilding does not mean returning to who you were. It means becoming who you should have been all along. I do not romanticize what I went through. It was painful, it was humiliating, it was lonely. But it was also transformative. Pain has a way of sharpening perception, strips you down to truth. And truth, once found, does not allow you to live small again. Today, my life is quieter, not empty, intentional. I wake up without fear of unanswered questions. I walk without feeling watched by ghosts of deception. I trust my instincts because they carried me through something that could have destroyed me. Sometimes people ask if I miss Daniel. I do not miss a man who planned my erasure. I do not miss a person who treated my trust like a resource to exploit. I miss the version of myself who believed love was always safe. But she was not foolish. She was hopeful. And hope, even when broken, is not shameful. I have become someone stronger than hope alone. I have become aware. And awareness changes everything. If you are listening to this and you feel like someone has rewritten your story without your consent, remember this. Stories can be reclaimed. Power can be restored. Justice does not always look like anger. Sometimes it looks like patience, like preparation, like quiet confidence. Do not rush your healing. Do not force forgiveness. Do not accept narratives that shrink your experience to protect someone else's image. You do not owe kindness to those who built comfort from your pain. You owe yourself truth. You owe yourself dignity. You owe yourself a future that is not defined by what was taken, but by what you reclaimed. I did not chase revenge. I walked toward truth. Revenge was simply the shadow truth cast when it finally stood in the light. And that is something no one can take from me. If this story made you feel something deep, if it reminded you of your own strength or your own unfinished chapter, then show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing. Share your thoughts. In the comments, have you ever witnessed karma work in silence? Your story might inspire someone who is still finding their power.